everybody, my name is Puppeteen from I Love Puppets, here on I Love Puppets to discuss Eternals. Well, it is new. It is exciting. Well, that is debatable. The trailer just dropped about 2 days ago now. I think it was 2 days. Might have been yesterday. Can't remember.
Yeah, it was yesterday because I saw it in the morning when I woke up around
Good, so we're
11.
still striking the iron while it's semi-warm. That's good. I am joined today by Mr. the Authenticator, otherwise known as Dalton. How do you do, Dalton?
I do fine, although I am disappointed with
Disappointed.
the trailer thus far. And again, I understand, especially with early trailers, you can't always trust them because, especially in movies where there's a lot of CGI construction, things take a while to render. It is a thing, but judging from the aesthetics and the framing of the shots and everything, I am not plussed, which is sad because unlike like 90% of the critical fan base on the internet, I actually give something resembling a crap about the Eternals and more importantly what they could imply for the future of the MCU, namely giving me my freaking Celestials already. Um,
Well,
but
I think they're trying to save that for actually in the movie. I don't think they want to expose that. There's not much to go on in this trailer. We know that what's her name? I've just read the classic run recently, so the name
Cersei,
Cersei and Icarus, I believe it's
Icarus,
pronounced.
Icarus.
It is actually pronounced Icarus. Okay.
Yes,
I wasn't.
as in the figure from Greek mythology. Yes.
Well, yeah, I knew that. I knew that the Eternals are basically meant to be what mythology in our world is based upon.
Yeah, they're doing the Stargate-esque ancient aliens sort of thing with Eternals, or at least that was what Jack the King Kirby, may he be praised, intended them to be. He was basically after he stopped. I can't remember which came first, New Gods or Eternals, but
I
at one
believe
point
Eternals.
he was on the outs with Marvel, and he went over to DC and created the New Gods as like, I still want to tell stories like that, but I don't have the characters, so I'll make these guys. That was sort of the point of that. That's why Jack Kirby is responsible for both the New Gods and the Eternals, and apparently Marvel yet again beat DC to the punch because I heard they were gonna have Ava DuVernay make a New Gods movie, and that sounded interesting to me, but alas.
I'm just going to say one thing about it. As for the New Gods movie, it was being made by the same woman who created A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes, which was a very bad adaptation of the book, but was visually
Horrible
interesting.
movie.
So
it was a horrible movie. So I'm not against a New Gods movie. I'm against a New Gods movie made by her.
I don't know. I think with the material of New Gods, she could have done something maybe interesting, and at the very least, it would have pushed visual boundaries, which is honestly all anyone was really hoping for from New Gods. But getting back on point with Eternals, my main issue is they're not making use of the potential that the Eternals have as a concept, because I hate the argument, will there a character there are a set of characters that's too obscure, therefore no one could possibly ever give a fuck about them. The problem with that being, prior to the MCU, Iron Man was not a household name. Captain America was only vaguely remembered. The only major figure in the main Avengers roster originally was Hulk, and he was on his third negative reboot. So like, I don't subscribe to the well, if the character has a fan base, they will always have that fan base. Or if a character doesn't have a fan base, then there's no possible way they could ever have a fan base argument because a lot of times characters become popular not necessarily because they deserve to be, but because they're simple enough for Joe Normal to kind of jump on board with. But if you
Well,
treat every character like on the same footing as a Spider-Man or an X-Men, you
hmm
might find that an obscure character winds up actually becoming a fan favorite. Even
well,
even in the case of the MCU, Doctor Strange, which I don't think they've handled him well as a lifelong Doctor Strange fan, is still fairly well liked among a hardened contingent of the fan base. So that's not the issue with Eternals, in my opinion. The issue with Eternals is they're not giving anyone any reason to care, and that is a big problem because if you don't have a pre-established fan base, then what you need to do is what James Gunn did with Guardians and what Scott Derrickson I think at least tried to do with Doctor Strange, which is give Joe Normal a reason to care, a reason to get invested and like it.
well.
And I'm not seeing a
Here's
lot
what
of
I'm
that
gonna
in the
say about
trailer.
this. I don't know if you remember when Ant-Man was coming out. Everybody was laughing. They thought that
You can't possibly make Ant-Man an interesting
mhm,
concept, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I remember.
that movie was a success. People loved it after watching it. That
Yeah,
so
superhero
no,
heist movie starring Paul Rudd. It sells itself. And that's the thing. A lot of times with MCU concepts, you can tell how successful a movie is going to be based on how snappy the concept ends up sounding when you just phrase it out right.
mhm,
Like in the case of Ant-Man. Okay, we're gonna have Paul Rudd make a heist movie in a superhero universe.
yep,
Done. Like that in and of itself kind of sells you on the thing.
they
Guardians, we're gonna have a ragtag um team of ne'er-do-wells, but it's gonna be in the form of a cosmic space opera, and one of the characters is gonna be a sapient raccoon, and one of the characters is gonna be a talking tree. You can think whatever you want about the adaptation of Guardians in the MCU, but that's at least an interesting movie concept on paper. Um, and with Eternals, they could easily make a interesting movie
mhm.
concept on paper, but it doesn't look like they have. Because I,
So
I was thinking about this earlier today. The way I would spin a proper Eternals movie is The Fifth Element meets History of the World Part 1 with a little bit of Stargate in the mix to kind of tie everything together. Tell me that is not at least an interesting sounding concept.
it,
But instead, what we get is very, very washed out, very, very basic, and very, very bland.
well, looking at these comments, Eternals, can you imagine being that boring forever? um, and Eternals will be boring. Um, I'm
It
gonna
doesn't have to
act.
be. Like I
It
said, if you
doesn't have
just
to be.
play with the concept, and find the angle on the concept, it can be an interesting movie.
Here's what I'm gonna say, because I've actually read some of the classic run, which all these characters come from. Um, but I mean, this is one of the more obscure, like you said.
Mhm.
It seems like it's a little bit of a mess. I have no idea what they're supposed to be fighting. Do you? They haven't
Um,
even hinted at it in the trailer.
yeah, based on just the trailer, I don't know, and no one
hmm
no one really explained. I know based on I keep my ear to the ground as far as behind the scenes stuff goes. Basically, they're going to end up fighting the Celestials that created them because the Celestials that created them are somehow not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I can definitely see it going that route. I'm saying they needed to hint towards that in the trailer.
yeah, they
Give
they
us
needed
an
they
oh
needed to
crap moment.
yeah, they
And they
needed to
didn't.
sell the actual concept, and that's the thing. There really doesn't appear to have been a great degree of like money shots. Like there's a couple shots in the trailer that are at least a little bit interesting. The closest thing to a money shot I'd call it is when the ship first arrives, and you kind of see it looming in the sky. That
It's a
was
square, sir.
it was a
It's
triangle.
just like a cube. It's
It's a triangle.
oh, was it a triangle? I thought
Yeah.
it was just angled. Um,
No, it's a triangle. But it's
that's not much better.
yeah, it's not much better. It's just like someone took took like a Ouija board planchet or a Solomonic triangle and went, "Hey guys, let's make a spaceship out of this, but we'll make it like the spaceship from Arrival." And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I was like, "Wait, they're
Well,
trying to do a sequel to Arrival? What?"
well, we quickly see that there are actually two Eternals in the ship. I just don't know where they're going with this. See, that's the main problem.
Okay, and
I remember reading earlier on that actually Josh Brolin was going to be coming back as Thanos in this movie because
and yeah,
Thanos is
because
connected.
Thanos, for those that don't know, is from a race known as the Deviants, which are sort of the mirror opposites of the Eternals. Basically, um, long and the short of it is in the Marvel universe there are these beings known as the Celestials, who are basically one step above gods.
Mhm.
And they occasionally go throughout the universe and monkey around with the genetics of different species to kind of boost evolution and to move things along quicker.
Yeah,
And when they got to Earth, what they did was they created the Eternals and the Deviants, who usually live on Titan, which is of course Thanos' homeworld. Um, the Eternals are basically genetically perfect, immortal human beings, and the Deviants are basically what happens when an Eternal mutates. Like they're the equivalent of the mutants for the Eternals. Um, and Thanos is significant because he was part his I believe his father was an Eternal and his mother was a Deviant. So basically, when Thanos was born, it created a super deviant essentially. That's the backstory
Hmm.
of Thanos in
Well,
the comics,
well,
or
I
part of
want
the
I want
backstory anyway.
to address some comments here.
Hmm.
Zach Richmond, hello, Zach. Side note: how will you introduce 10 new characters and make the audience care about them in 2 hours? I don't know. That's going to be a hard one.
Well, it's probably going to be closer to 230, but yeah, it's gonna be difficult, especially because each character has a different like they all have the same base powers, but they each have specialty powers as well. So
Mhm.
but then again, I mean, the X-Men exist, so and the
That's fair.
Guardians, and
Well,
yeah,
I
so it could
really
be
think it's
done.
going to be a balance game, and I really think that well, what's her name? Is it Gemma Chan, something like that? The one who's playing Cersei, actually, a lovely woman, of course.
Hmm.
And that is an important thing when you're asking her to play Cersei, because she is one of the best looking characters from that classic run. Um,
Well, and she's also named after a goddess from Greek mythology who is literally the
mhm,
goddess of sexuality and sorcery.
mhm,
So yeah, kind of necessary that she be pretty.
true. Uh, that's actually something to talk about. I do have to say, for most of the cast anyway, they went ahead and made sure. Okay, we're picking some perfect human beings. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
They came close with many.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you've got you've got your who's who of like A-list talent from about 10 years ago, and that's fine and all. But it does sort of bridge into a broader point I was going to make about the aesthetics. This franchise is based on a comic by Jack the King Kirby, Elsa the King.
Yes.
Um, and it is weird and surreal and colorful and trippy.
Yes.
Why is 90% of the trailer just people standing in fields and the colors being more washed out than they were in Captain America Civil War? Because
Shields are more affordable.
well, yes, but for the most part, um, one of the things that the MCU has been pretty good at is the street level movies are more like desaturated and less colorful, and then you've got the cosmic side of the MCU, your Guardians, your Thor Ragnarok, and
Mhm.
so on, that is full of color and full of a very Kirby-esque aesthetic. Um,
Why doesn't this have that? That's a good
what
question.
why does it it's not only why doesn't this have that, because I mean they are on Earth, so that's I guess kind of fair enough. But why is this almost worse in terms of color grading than even something like Civil War was? Because at least in Civil War, you could still tell the like color schemes of the various different like superhero outfits, and then of course you had Wanda using her red chaos magic in the background, and that made for a nice ensemble piece. But with Eternals, everything just looks washed out gray. And for something cosmic, and for something specifically made by Jack Kirby in his prime to literally be about as weird as he could go at the time, um, I think that's symptomatic of the larger problem of they're trying to make this grounded, when in actuality, to make it interesting to Joe Normal, to make it stand out in the superhero space, which is very, very competitive at the moment,
Yeah.
you have to kind of go balls to the wall and damn the consequences. Essentially, that seems to be the only way I can think of them actually making it out of this alive.
One of the many problems I see with this movie, and I do see problems, um, is that I think they are pushing too much into let's go throughout time. See, whenever we read the Eternals run, it is set in then the modern day, and it's explained to us, okay, yes, we were involved in these events and these events, but it takes place in the now. This movie wants to go into the then, and that's the problem.
See, I don't necessarily think that is a problem. I think it's once again the way they're doing it. Like I said, if I were gonna pitch a proper Eternals, the way I would go about it is Fifth Element meets History of the World Part One with a little bit of Stargate intermixed to tie everything together. I don't I don't see it as a problem of them kind of going through the centuries and having almost like a Doctor Who esque they were behind the scenes all along kind of thing. Um, I do kind of see a problem with the fact they're not using Eternal, and again, it boils back down to my problem with Marvel recently of like they have all these they have all the fun toys to play with, and then they don't do anything with them. Because if you were to tell me, okay, we're gonna make an ancient history movie set in the Marvel universe, I'm thinking, okay, so this is the appropriate moment to retcon all of the interesting, weird aspects of the history of the Marvel universe. Because the history of the Marvel universe, especially at like the dawn of man, is so freaking weird because you have the Celestials showing up, you have the Inhumans showing up, you have the Elder Gods showing up, and got Gaia and like the ancient primordial deities of the Marvel universe. All
Mhm.
everyone, it's kind of like how in um, DC with the Green Lanterns, Earth is somehow like the the baseline for all of the other planets in the universe. In the same way with the Marvel universe, for some reason, Earth was special to every significant race in the Marvel universe, and everybody was meddling with it the entire way through. So if I were pitching this and I were gonna do the ancient history angle, I would use it as an opportunity um, to set up the weirder aspects of the history of the Marvel universe. Like have especially given the fact that Kit Harington, I believe, is playing a character called Black Knight, who is tied explicitly in with the Arthurian mythos. And we've never really seen the Arthurian mythos touched on in the MCU, but this would be the appropriate moment to touch on it. Um, not to mention the fact that we had the Darkhold used in WandaVision, and
Yeah,
we know it's going to come back up in Doctor Strange 2, which means if you were going to set up any Elder Gods um like Ashtur, who is one of the three Vishanti that Strange actually gets his powers primarily from, or Chthon, who is the writer of the Darkhold, this would have been the movie to do it in. Rather than just have it be generic history that they're working their way through, use this as a jumping off point to show off the weirder aspects of the history of the Marvel Universe specifically.
yeah. I
That would be the appropriate angle to go with it, but
here
they don't seem to be.
here's one problem that I see with going into the history and stuff and just pushing it along. What does that mean for now? See, when we watched Captain Marvel, um, we were watching her origin story. Fine, yeah. How'd that connect to Endgame at all? Didn't. It
Yeah,
didn't until the last second of the after credit scene.
which
So
honestly you could have just set her up in Endgame and then had her movie later if the fan base was receptive to her. They wouldn't have been because Brie Larson is a plank of wood with an agenda, but you know, being that as it may, whatever.
yeah,
Um,
what I'm saying is that they want us to care about these characters. How do they interact with the characters that we know and that we're following now? Because we know they need to stand on their own, yes, but they also need to connect with the universe everywhere.
yeah,
And so going back into history, while it does, oh, look, this connection here, this connection there, that's not going to explain, that's not going to justify this movie to connect them to the characters now. They should
it
be,
also it also creates a bit of a Pandora's box problem of, okay, so you were here for since the Neanderthals, because we see actual like cavemen and Neanderthals
Mhm.
in the trailer as they arrive. So you've been here for at least as long as the Neanderthals. So why didn't you, oh, I don't know, take a position on any significant like major conflicts? Where were you during like the civil rights movement? Where were you during where were or even if we're just going to keep it to they wanted to save their powers for big like cosmic scale events. Okay, well, where were you when the Asgardians showed up? And not to mention all the other gods that are probably going to get referenced in Thor: Love and Thunder because the God Butcher's in it, but never mind. Um, where were you during the invasion of New York? Where were you during the blip or the snap? Because if we assume all life on every world got bifurcated in half, that
The
would
Eternals would be included.
that would mean surely that the Eternals themselves were also bifurcated in half, unless they were somehow immune to the Infinity Stones. And if they were immune to the freaking Infinity Stones, then like 20% of this movie needs to be explaining how the fuck that's supposed to work.
I'm going to go ahead and jump into some comments.
Okay.
Maranya, hello Maranya. Going to the past with movies, unless you do a huge timeline breaking event that has to be fixed. Having characters that were around before Avengers 1, where the hell were you during that? That's a good point. Here's what I think might actually be. Because in that classic Kirby run, we follow, I believe, Icarus first. And
Yeah,
what he's doing is he's going down to like, where the hell was that? I don't know, but he frees some
I
of
know
his eternal brethren.
I know what you're referencing. I just can't think of it either.
Yeah. So he goes to this tomb. He frees some of his eternal brethren, but then it ends up having to close, and he goes to New York where Cersei is. So,
Hmm.
I mean, some of the characters could be around, but we could say that a base of them were locked away. And this could be okay, we have to find a way to bring
They
them
were in
back.
stasis or something. Yeah, that could work, or it could also be kind of like what they tried to do with Captain Marvel, rather hilariously because it didn't it was not organic at all. It was very forced. But what they could do is the Eternals are just too powerful for such a thing, or it's not in their jurisdiction, which is kind of what they did with the Ancient One as well. Like it's not in her jurisdiction, so she's not supposed. People are kept to their appropriate jurisdictions, but because presumably the Celestials or a horde of them are going to show up on Earth, that would definitely fit in the Eternals' jurisdiction because the Celestials created both them and the Deviants, so that would kind of make sense.
Yeah, no,
But even
I'm
so,
wondering about
you've
that,
got to be
but
very careful about explaining that because if you don't, then the only question anyone, especially Joe Normal, is going to have in the back of his mind is, okay, so where have these guys been for the last 10 years of on-screen continuity?
So Slitherclaw, hello Slitherclaw, good to see you. Says the vast history could be done. It could be done if done properly. That is an important note. I want to be more excited about this. I really do. They just
I
need to
would
give me
love
a
to be
reason
more
why.
excited about this. Because I've been saying for years that I don't care how obscure a character is, as long as the character is done well. And I always enjoy when they do have like a Guardians moment where they take a character or a set of characters that not even I'm 100% on and go, here's one of the most entertaining movies in this universe. But they just it seems like every creative decision they've made is not just a wrong choice, but the exact opposite choice than the one they should have made. Like
Well,
like with the color palette, we've established via Guardians and Thor Ragnarok that the cosmic side of the Marvel universe is very um multicolored
colorful.
and trippy, especially when it pertains to Jack Kirby stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so what do we do when we do Eternals? Make it even more washed out than Captain America: Civil War. Um, we want to see aspects of the Marvel universe that we haven't seen before. So what are we gonna do? Just have them like have flashbacks to different parts of history, not Marvel specific history or anything, just history, and make us all wonder where the heck they've been for all of the major events throughout the Marvel universe so far. We want to care about these characters, so make sure that each character gets their spotlight and their time to shine. And we'll have an ensemble cast so big that there's no feasible way we could possibly have them all be interesting or engaging. And on and on and on it goes. It seems like it honestly seems almost like somebody made a bet while they were drunk. Like Kevin Feige and a bunch of his friends got drunk one night and went, I know what, you know, we can make a movie out of anything. So let's take a concept and do everything wrong with it, and I bet people will still see it.
It
And
almost
I'm
is
just
like
sitting there
that.
like,
I do
no.
have to agree because it doesn't feel at all like what I read. While I will say what I read while it is by Jack the King Kirby, it wasn't the most engaging for me. I have to
It's
be
not
honest.
his best work. It's definitely not his best work.
I
And
want to touch upon this.
it was very insular and self indulgent. I'm not gonna lie.
I want to touch
Um,
upon this comment by Miss So. Good to see you, Miss So. The Eternals might have worked better as a TV series, even a mini run. There's too much to unpack in one movie unless they are planning sequels. See, with Disney Plus, this was their perfect opportunity to test it with this. You have all these characters, you have big names attached to them.
mhm.
You do a series and go ahead. Then it makes sense to go into time. But you know
Yeah,
what else is going into time? Loki,
yeah,
which is going to be all about the bending of time that was done because of Endgame.
yeah. It's gonna be Loki, but also kind of Rick and Morty, which is aside from anything else is a really interesting concept for a series, especially now that we have it confirmed. Even though I called it, months ago, that Loki is also going to tie into Doctor Strange too,
Probably.
which is honestly kind of it makes sense to me, especially after the exchange um between mainline Loki and Doctor Strange back in Thor Ragnarok. Um,
That's dead Loki.
Well, yeah, that's why I said mainline Loki.
Ah, okay,
Um,
okay. Just want to make sure that
yeah,
we
yeah,
establish that.
not this one is alt Loki or
Yeah.
aborted timeline Loki. But um,
Uh,
I've been saying for a while that I think most of the major movies in Phase 4 are all going to tie into establishing the broader sort of cosmic multiverse. Because you've got WandaVision, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, which we already knew were connected, but you've also got um, Thor: Love and Thunder and Eternals, which could easily tie into each other. And I already explained one way in which I think would be smart for them to do, which is have
mhm.
the Eternals run into the Elder Gods at some point, and that way, when you want to pull out Chthon or Shimogorath for Doctor Strange 2, it's already like you've got yourself the out. That's my other issue with Eternals. It doesn't really seem like it's connecting to anything, which is strange in a franchise that is literally sold on everything interconnects with everything else. Um, that's like the whole point of the MCU is everything is interconnected, or at least everything relevant to the plot
It's
is
supposed to
interconnected.
be. Um, it makes me want to touch upon this right here. Marani is saying that the Eternals are basically acting like the Watchers, just sitting on the sidelines with non-interference prime directive. What makes them get off their cosmic butts and act if not Avengers 1 or Thanos? It's a good question. It makes me wonder the same thing.
I suspect the answer is holy crap, the Celestials are unhappy with their work and they're coming to wreck everything and start over, because basically the Celestials had a big part in establishing the human race in the comics, and they basically view humanity as an experiment. So
Yeah,
if they find that that experiment is unsatisfactory, well, we'll just wipe the slate clean and start over. And then it's like, oh wait, but humanity is the chalkboard. That's not good.
but I want to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I just want to say, overall, this does have a kind of, as my friend Rob would say, weak sauce to it. It is kind of weak sauce.
It does.
I would like it to be bolder. So with trailer, there's one other thing that's worth a mention. This is a teaser trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So they're giving us bits of this and that. Sadly, they haven't given us any bits that will hook people. And hopefully in the first official trailer, we'll actually be able to sink our teeth into some,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that
Awesome.
is yeah, that is the thing. And again, I fully acknowledge, especially with things that are CGI heavy, things take time
Mhm.
to render. So it is possible that they just didn't have any of the money shots ready. But but
At the same time, you
that's
have
a
to
bit
give
of a
us something to
problem
go
when
off
you
of.
consider that the whole purpose of a trailer is supposed to be to advertise things.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have any of the features ready to actually advertise the thing, you probably should have just waited a few months, especially considering that we all know that release dates and things are always kind of shifting, and COVID has kind of made everything in a standstill anyway.
Yep.
So there's no reason why you had to release this trailer right now. You could have waited a couple of months to when you have Celestials and Elder Gods and every other interesting thing in the history of the Marvel universe ready, and then just given us balls to the wall, full Jack Kirby. And that was the other thing. I remember when Kevin Feige was talking about Eternals for the first time, like he was being interviewed about it, and he specifically said, "You know how Thor Ragnarok was kind of Jack Kirby esque? Well, this is going to be full Jack Kirby." And I'm just like, as a massive Jack Kirby fan, especially Jack Kirby's weirder cosmic stuff, I'm not seeing much Jack Kirby here. I'm seeing a bunch of very pretty people standing in a field, and you tell me what I'm looking for in Eternals, and it's not very pretty people standing in a field. It's trippy 60s cosmic weirdness. And I'm not seeing any of the weirdness. And guy needs my weirdness fix.
Marania says that she calls shenanigans on not having a flashy trailer ready. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they're trying to give us this, which feels, what the hell is this? What's going on? Which is a teaser trailer, even though it's a full 2 minutes. Why are teaser trailers getting longer, is what I'm wondering. But that's besides the point.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the full trailer. This isn't supposed to tell us everything. This is supposed to give us a taste of the action. Sadly, the taste is just kind of bland, and we need more. And
yeah, you forgot all the spices, Marvel. Come back when you've actually added all of the actual flavor, please.
Slitherclaw. Or, hear me out, I traveled back in time, and this trailer's nothing to do with the movie. The trailer is deleted scenes, lol. Odds on that. I don't know. Could be. But
I don't know.
think
I want at least the scene with the ship to be in the movie, because that was the only time where I'm like, okay, so you were trying to slow build me. So now do you go and reveal all the epic stuff? And it's like, no, that was the only money shot in the entire thing. Aw.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I want to thank you so much for joining me, Dalton. And I want to thank everybody for watching. On I Love Puppets, we are here to cover the latest and greatest. That's debatable when you consider most of our content. But we are happy to be here for you. If you're watching this afterwards, make sure to like and comment, and make sure you're subscribed. We want to boost those numbers up. We are fighting YouTube. They're trying to keep the puppet down. We got to get the puppet up. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time. So, for now, bye!
Cheers, guys.